did the calculation, I'll be able to provide that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello?
How are you? Good.
What do you need?
Do you have a spare?
Of?
Actually, just the agenda, I can go get the agenda.
Oh, I've got.
She always has what I need. Paula has it. Thank you, darling. Yes, just to get that other thing.
Is this presentation?
Right. I'm just talking about what to call it.
Oh, yeah.
Questions.
So you know,
I think your meeting with us was supposed to be like a half an hour, but it's like 2 hours. Maybe. You know, kind of
I don't know.
looking at the intricacies and excitement.
Yes, I think it's good to be consistent.
Okay.
And I will be happy to talk. It's my new obsessive. And if people are watching, they'll understand that there's no consistent.
It's 6 o'clock, according to the clock on the wall, we'll call the meeting to order. Can we start with the roll call, please?
Brent Bybee is absent. Sherry Dufault.
Here.
Bruce LaViere.
Here.
Cody Cornett.
Here.
Mark Popoff.
Here.
Steve Ross.
Here.
And Jeff Stiles.
Here.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes or corrections or modifications to the agenda as was presented? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, unanimous. Okay, next item is the approval of the minutes from the July 18 meeting. Do we have any corrections or changes to those minutes?
Move to approve the minutes.
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, that's passed.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, to, have public testimony held to 5 minutes or less per person tonight.
I second that motion.
Moved. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay? Next item is our time for public comment. This is an opportunity for those who would like to speak on items that are not on the agenda. I don't see anybody stepping forward, so we'll move on to our presentation. Steve, do you want to introduce that, or?
My pleasure to introduce Mr. Baker. He's one of the fabulous Baker brothers, by the way.
I've got 3 older brothers, so you're correct.
Well, this is Scott Baker. Scott is the executive director of Parks and Rec District, and they have recently gone through a master plan preparation and adoption, and we thought it would be a good idea to invite Mr. Baker in and to present the fruits of their labor. It does affect the citizens of the Dalles and some of the recreational opportunities. So he does have a presentation. I believe you also have copies of the master plan that was adopted. That is fun. So,
Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Planning Commission. Thanks for having me. My name is Scott Baker, and I've been the Executive Director for the Park and Recreation District just a couple months shy of 3 years. Came on in November of 2016. And I joined the district in a really great time because they had spent this huge effort and all of their focus on getting the new pool built. And they were successful at that, passed the bond, built the pool, ran it for a season, and we're kind of now asking the question, what next? And it was a great time to join because the answer to that question really needed to come from the community. And so it was a great opportunity for me to use a master planning process to answer that question. What are our next 20 years going to look like? What are the big projects that are going to be the task of staff to help create? And it was a great opportunity for me to just learn about the Dalles because this process involved a lot of listening. We did a ton of stakeholder interviews, a lot of surveying. We went to farmers markets. We had booths up at different cherry festival and a lot of different events, and just had big ears and listened and wrote things down, and then tried to distill all of those things that we heard from the community into new park plans. We wanted the master planning process to result in not just a document that would sit on a shelf and not be used, but also to be a working document that we could actually have park designs as a result of take what we've learned and try and incorporate those things into physical facilities throughout the community. And we were able to do that because the park district has a lot of property. We are a large landowner in this area, and a lot of it is undeveloped or underdeveloped. And one of the things that we heard loud and clear from folks was that there was a strong emphasis on taking better care of the parks that we have versus acquiring more parkland and building new parks. And so you'll see that reflected throughout the document and in our park designs. We had a few goals. I'm going to go through them quickly. I'll share with you our park plans, and then I just really want to open it up to questions. I hope that you've had a chance to at least go through the executive summary. It sort of encapsulates the document rather well. I have passed out hard copies of the document a couple times last year to turn to different pages in there, but I'll certainly do plenty of time for questions. So one of the things that we took away from all of our surveying is that there was a feeling that the park district lacked an identity beyond the pool. You know, when we had asked specific questions like, "Oh, have you ever been to Strosis Park?" "Oh yeah." "Oh, is that you, or is that the city?" There seemed to be a lot of confusion about who did what, who owned what, who took care of what, where do you call if you see a sprinkler shooting up into the air. And so we realized that we needed to do some work on just creating a better brand for the district and identity for the district, so that when people walked into a park district park in the Dalles, they knew that they were in a park district park. And then, we also, at the same time that they said focus on making the parks that you have better than building new ones, there was a recognition that there was a lack of connectivity between our parks, and a lack of an equal distribution throughout the Dalles of our parks, especially on the west side. And so, on one hand, they said make the parks better, but on the other hand, produce a few small neighborhood parks on the west side and in some underserved areas, and try and connect those parks to other parks and schools, and have safe ways for kids to get to those parks. We recognize that if we're going to continue to have a high quality park system, we need to look beyond our tax base. And we need to be innovative about finding new funding streams and new partnerships to take better care of our parks. And so you'll see that reflected in like overnight camping and different revenue streams that the park district can create so that we can create a first-class park system. Our tax base right now, our parks are good. They're clean, they're safe, they're okay, but they're not stellar. We just need a little bit more, and I think we can bump up our level of service a lot and make a park system that the community can really be proud of. But tax base alone isn't going to get us there. And then another goal is just that, the maintenance and operations. And that's going back to the take better care of the parks that you have. So more focus of putting more of our funding stream towards maintenance and operations, even what some would suggest at the expense of our recreational programming, that the facilities were more important than the recreational programming. Sustainability came up, and just that sustainability often in our conversations came up with build it right the first time, build quality, build it to last, kind of buy once, cry once, we sort of heard a lot. And that, not that we needed, we just need to build things with an intention for their long-term durability, because oftentimes, and as you know, it's easier to find the capital money through grants and everything to build things, but it's hard to find money to maintain them. So we want to build them well with an eye that they'll have lower long-term maintenance costs. And then also, we see, and the community sees parks as an opportunity to build community resiliency. And a great example of that is just like our adult slow pitch softball league, where teams come together from all walks of life, get out on the field and play together, and they might not know each other any other way. And so you have, just a mix of folks that come out and they really get to know each other through the season, and they play season after season. And that's just an example of how we kind of can use parks and facilities and programming to bring people from all walks of life together. And we think that that will really help, when disaster strikes or when you need a friend, then you have this community support to fall back on. And that's a role that we'd like to expand in, both through youth sports and adult sports. So those were kind of our main goals and takeaways from our community outreach effort. And we've got a lot of great park ideas, so I'm going to run through them quickly. If at the end of some of them we can always go back and take them some more. So we didn't have, we decided to limit our scope to 5 properties. This is a 20-year plan, and facility development takes a lot of time, especially for some of the larger properties. So we wanted to be realistic, and we wanted to create a high-quality product. So we didn't focus on every single park district property. That doesn't mean you won't see Cirrhosis Park on this list. That doesn't mean that we're not doing improvements at Cirrhosis. In fact, we are. We've spent a lot of money up at Cirrhosis this last year, especially getting ready for its 100-year anniversary in 2021. But these are some parks that are in need of some immediate help, or they offer the most opportunity for improvement. And I'm going to start with City Park. City Parks gets a lot of use not only for farmers markets. What you might not know is that the DHS across the street does a lot of supervised family visits in this park. And so we want to create spaces in this area where they can feel sort of intimate, but they're still able to be looked into, so for supervised family visits and the way that DHS uses it. We want to make it work better for farmers market, which means more hardscaping that's easier for folks with limited mobility to get around, some covered area, some shaded area. This is a 20 by 120 foot covered shelter that can be market space. Of course, market vendors can still go all the way around. The sewer line here is failing, so we want to relocate the restrooms up to a better sewer line. And we also are designing the park that a police cruiser, it won't be obvious to most folks, they won't use it as a drive-through, but a police cruiser can drive through this property and increase security. expand the playground and also make it an accessible playground. Our Leathers branded playground that we have at Cirrhosis is great, but it's not very accessible for folks that are in a chair or have limited mobility. So we want this redesign to expand this playground with a focus on accessibility for everybody and making it fun for everybody. Have some handicap parking. Keep the Rose Garden just as it is. And then maybe in another phase build a stage or move the stage and amphitheater for some live music events. So that's Roma City Park. Do you want to do questions as we go? Let's do some questions as we go.
That's in your first, set of priorities, the phase 1 or phase or 4?
Well, so where we're at now is we've adopted the master plan, and the Park District Board has not given staff direction on which to pursue first. They're trying to narrow it down to 2. We're going to pursue grant funding for those 2. Whatever we get grant funding for will rise to the top. You know, if one of these projects, you know, money falls from the sky, then it'll be first. But this is, so they're not ranked. I'm just presenting them, and not even alphabetical. It's actually just however they're stacked. This is Thompson Park. These are also, if you're having difficulty seeing these are around page 80 or so in the master plan in front of you if you want to look at close. There's park design.
So 69 has the one we just finished.
Following pages, if you flip through, and sorry, I didn't think about that, but we've got Thompson Park, also known as the pool and the skate park. We're looking at an expanded skate park where the old tennis courts used to be. They flooded out years ago. And but we see an opportunity to rebuild those. The part of what caused the flooding over here has been redone by the city, and so there's a new way for we'll move more water through Mill Creek, so we're confident that we can build things that will survive a flood. But we're looking at some stage amphitheater seating and a new screen for our Movies in the Park event. Right now we use an inflatable screen, but it's only get up to 20-mile-an-hour winds, and we were shut out last year a couple of times because the wind speeds were too high for our inflatable screen. So we'd like to have a permanent screen there, almost a drive-in movie theater style, but it'd still be a walk-in movie. And then mini golf in this area. And mini golf is something that we see as a low-cost family activity. We have the concession stand there from the pool that opens up to the splash pad. We could open that up in March, hand out putters and balls, employ a couple high school students beyond just the summer, and just kind of have a fun activity there that's a little bit different. This also includes the Mill Creek Greenway from 2nd Street all the way through till 6th, the mountain bike skill development area, some increased parking, and a long-term covered sports shelter. So we have about 6 acres of undeveloped land right now. This has been identified as a brownfield, one of the highest priority brownfields in the Dalles. And so hopefully we can maybe leverage that designation to secure some funding to help develop this park.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
It says a brownfield. What was there before that contaminated it?
You know, I don't think that it's listed as a brownfield for contamination. I think that it's just an unsightly, undeveloped area. And so it's just, and, you know, maybe Don or not to speak to it more, but it got that designation, I think, just because it is, it's considered blight. From a park management standpoint, it's a problem. We have transients camping there who like fires. Fire danger is a real concern of ours. It's difficult to police, and it's, you know, over our 3 years of my last 3 years of really trying to curtail that behavior, I've come to the conclusion the only thing that we're going to get that to stop is to bring positive energy and positive development into that will drive that away. And because we can put up no trespassing signs every 5 feet, and it just has no effect. Riverfront Park is just a real diamond in the rough, and it's really ripe for some redevelopment. It's also an area that I think that could really benefit the community by restoring that connection of the Dalles to the river. Even though we're so close to the river, it's so hard to get to. There's only a few places that you can really access the river well. So we want to make Riverfront Park an exciting, inviting place for people to go. It's not great to swim there, mostly because the bottom right here is kind of squishy on the feet. So we think that if we can make a swim and fishing dock that gets you out so you can get into the water and out of the water without touching the bottom, it'll be a more attractive place to swim. We have some non-motorized craft lunch. We have some boardwalk, improved bathrooms. And the other thing that this has is overnight camping. This is going to do two things for us. One is it's going to be an additional revenue stream. You know, the difference between good and great for our budget is between 80 and 110,000. We need about 80 or 110,000 year after year, not one-time money, to really bring our park district grounds and maintenance up to the level that we would like them to be at, which is not a huge sum of money, and it's one that we think that we can realistically generate from a project like this. The other thing that it will do for us is have a camp host. So we'll have some 24-hour security down there, and that way we can set people's minds at ease that they can bring their families down there and that it's a safe place to go. It's already helped. We've done extensive brush removal in this area. We limbed every tree up to 9 feet, cut every shrub down to 3 feet or lower, and it already feels more open and more safe, and families are starting to recognize that. But it has quite a bit of a reputation problem it needs to overcome, and we think that a camp host is one of the ways that we can do that. We can also have a second camp host site just focused on the riverfront trail. And so we can, make a spot for someone, a retired person perhaps, to bring in their fifth wheel, spend the summer, drive their gator up and down Riverfront Trail and help with sweeping, refilling the doggy bags and things like that. Even just opening up the bathroom and closing the gate at night will reduce our maintenance costs for these different facilities, and so it'll stretch our budget a little bit farther. Additionally, we see an opportunity at this far end to make space for potential fire camps. Right now, when there are fire disasters in the gorge, the fire crews take over the school fields, displacing all the activities that would be happening on those school fields if they weren't there. We've been in consultation with those fire crews. They like this site because it's directly off the freeway. When they're coming off a 24-hour shift, they don't want to drive through a neighborhood to get there. And so this has some great access and some great possibility. Hopefully we never use it, but we want to build it with that in mind as a potential use for it. And then expanding access through the nature area, but this nature will be largely left undeveloped.
Are we going to improve the access from downtown into this area?
You know, that's so, you know, I would probably refer to the transportation system plan for that. You know, we have some of our facilities and projects identified in the TSP, and we see, you know, off-street recreational trails as the park district component, and then on-street bike lanes is more the city's transportation department component. So we have what I think is pretty great access via the Riverfront Trail to Riverfront Park. I think it's a little tricky through the marina parking lot. I think those are overcomable obstacles, but we can increase the visibility and use of that Riverfront Trail. And one of the park district goals is having bike and walk times on our wayfinding signs, so we can say Riverfront Trail, it's a 20-minute walk or a 10-minute bike ride from this location.
I was thinking if you had fire crews camp down there, that they might want to get in downtown and their off time for supplies or whatever.
Yeah, so I think it would be either via the Riverfront Trail or you hop on the I-84 there, you get right off on the west side. So.
Okay.
I have a quick question for
Sure.
the RV parking spots. Is your intention to have those be people can park there all summer long, or is there a 7-day turnover? Or
Yeah,
limited day
more like
turnover?
that. Yeah,
Okay,
so we see
cool.
this as a short-term stay.
Okay.
And I know that there is a need for, especially the trades, to park for longer. That's not really what we see this as. This is a short-term time for people who come for a softball tournament and want to stay in their RV, or they're driving down A84 and they need to stop for a night. We're a great stopping spot, for points east and west.
Okay.
And so, and that's one of the things that the camp host would be charged with, is making sure that those turnovers happen quickly and timely.
So to kind of piggyback on your question, currently our parks open space does not allow for that use. So in talking with Scott and looking at his plan, that would be something that we'd have to do a zoning ordinance amendment as well as potentially a comprehensive plan amendment to make that use as a camping site to be allowed.
Got it. Okay. Nice.
And we're not seeing it as strictly as an RV park. I mean, it would be overnight camping, you know, we might have some RV sites. We'll be limited on the number of RV sites that we can have by the state, because we only really have one entrance and one egress really for that site. So it won't be certainly won't be as large as the Dallas needs, but it will be a piece of that puzzle.
And it'll be set up for tenants as well as a camping, right?
Yeah. And that's been for our area. If you're not familiar with the SCORP, the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, it's one of the highest identified needs for Wasco County in general, and for the Dallas in particular. There's more tent camping, more camping. So it's a way that you know, we can solve a lot of community needs. I know that it's also a goal of the city to have some overnight and RV camping as well. So you know, we seek out opportunities where we can partner with the city.
One more quick question. I can't find it now, of course, but there was a bullet point here that said access over on the east end of Riverfront Park, access over one of the Columbia River inlets. Is that to access like this area to the Lone Pine?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And so Lone Pine has a plat on their plat map. They have some easement already, so we're working to connect those two, and
Great.
and hope that we can get there over time. This is the 14th Street Reservoir. I know I have the map upside down, but my brain works better with Kelly Viewpoint up here and the rest of the park down below it. So if you're looking down from Kelly Viewpoint, you look down the steep hill, you look into the our maintenance, what's currently our maintenance yard. The high school is down below, and so we see this as a undeveloped acreage that could be turned to good park use, as well as some other steeper areas that don't have a lot of recreational value. We see this as another opportunity where we might be able to partner with the city to provide some affordable housing, especially if we could take some of this property and trade it for some property perhaps on the west side or throughout the area where we need more park land. And it has some good access off of 16th and up here. So, did you get that page number?
Yep.
It is
65.
Great. So if you wanted to follow along a little closer. So the reason the dog park is so large is so that the grass has a chance to recover well. A large area like this allows us to fence it into 3 different sections. You let dogs into one section and close off the other 2. When it starts to get hammered, you open up the other section and you kind of work your way around the clock like that, so that the grass can live. You have an area for small and shy dogs. We have some dedicated pickleball courts, maybe some futsal courts, restrooms, some parking. And you know, we've only done very, very limited outreach in this area for the neighbors who are closer. We haven't met any strong resistance to a dog park, and it's been met rather positively. So we're pretty optimistic that this can be done here. It's largely fenced already, and this is kind of a lower price tag than some of our other developments, and so this might be one of the ones that happens a little sooner rather than later.
Do you have off-street parking on there?
Yeah, right.
You do.
Just right here, yeah. And it's not a ton. It's you know, our hope is that folks will be able to walk from this rather dense neighborhood to this park as well.
There'll probably be a lot of people driving in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if you ever had any complaints, it's probably a lot of parking.
How many pickleball courts do you have there?
It shows 3. Yeah. I know you run 4 for a tournament. I think Mr. McLaughlin like 8.
Yeah.
Compromise from 0 to 3. Any other questions on the dog park? I'm kind of be mindful of the time here. This is very aspirational. This is we get asked rather frequently, what would fit in Kramer if you used all the county property, including, so this is like this area over here behind the senior centers where the community wood program is, and there's a few other things, some storage buildings. A lot of these things really don't need to be on flat ground right there. They could be relocated to the county properties. You know, the wood program could be located to our own 14th Street Reservoir property. But you know, this is land that is, you know, currently under conservation easement from Land and Water Conservation Fund. It can't be developed unless it's replaced with like recreational land, and so, you know, if it's going to be, ball fields for any length of time, and we had the ability to develop this, what could it look like, what could it hold? And so I know from so far away, it's a little bit maybe easier to look into in the books there, but you can see, you know, 4 full-size soccer fields, a smattering of softball, hardball, and little league fields, playgrounds, some off-street parking, some concessions. This would really allow us to host regional tournaments. We would be the Delta Park of the East with something like this, and we would be able to program this a lot. And so it would be, I think, a really wonderful thing for the community. There's hotels nearby, hotels going up nearby. You know, and so, was that?
It would be so pretty.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Aesthetic.
the location is great. We have, you know, we have some opportunities to make some protected bike lanes all the way from behind Cascade Square down 8th to Kramer, connecting up with our Mill Creek Greenway, connecting up with the Riverfront Trail. So this is a fantastic location. And, you know, I know when ball fields went out there wasn't a lot of town built up around this, and sort of town's built up now, kind of surrounding Kramer Field. But what that's done is really just made it an ideal location. It's not a great shape for sports fields. If you were waving your magic wand to build a sports field, this isn't what you would draw. But this is what we could reasonably fit in this space, and so this is about a $13-14 million project. Not cheap. There's a lot of artificial turf. You know, we wanted to include this in our capital improvement plan because it's been a goal of the community for a long time. And so we wanted, if not here, maybe there's another location, maybe there's a better location, but we wanted to include it so that as we reevaluate what our system development charge is, will be to get these big goals, these big things built. We wanted it to be reflected because this is a community goal. We hear this over and over again. You know, if the Gorge Youth Center wasn't actively working on a teen center, we would have a teen center in our Parks District Master Plan. We don't think that this community needs two. They're a little bit farther along on it. If we included it, it would skyrocket our SDCs to a point that we think would be unmanageable. So it was a conscious decision to leave a teen center out of our master plan.
But this is in proximity, fairly close to that location.
It is, yeah.
Which would be nice.
Any questions on Kramer?
About artificial turf, you know, it gets really hot here in the summer, and I think the fields would just be unusable in the summertime to use artificial turf. I know grass has kind of a bad rap because it does take a lot of water to irrigate it, but I would discourage you from using artificial turf. Well, it does wear out eventually, and it's expensive to replace. Grass could take care of it, you know, it lasts a long time.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, our water bill at Kramer right now is between $35,000 and $42,000 a year, and but we get so much more play value out of artificial turf. There'll still be sprinklers on it to cool it off. And you know, and actually in our price cost estimating, the closest thing I found to this was in Phoenix. It gets pretty hot there too. They water their grass and it's playable. With lights, we can play into the evening, but you get so much more. You can have, you know, especially the soccer fields, even just our youth soccer fields, hammer the Kramer, and so that it becomes a mud pit in those seasons. Whereas with artificial turf, we can play, you know, from 6 in the morning until midnight, and it's fine. So there's some pros and cons, but this is a mix of both. You can see that we have some natural gas and artificial turf as well. Yeah. All right. I want to just briefly touch on page 85. And you know, this is park district facilities and school facilities and proposed trails. And you know, the NRPA for years kind of worked off of a system where it was, you looked at, you had a goal of, you know, you wanted 10 acres per 1,000 of parkland. And what they found is that it wasn't really a great tool for park planning, because you might have one 400-acre park in one part of town and no other parks distributed throughout your town, and it looked like on paper that everything was fine, because you had your parks acres per thousand. And so over the time, different metrics have been tried, whether you're a half mile or a quarter mile walk from a park in town. You know, how connected are your parks? And so there's been sort of a shift to changing the way that we think about acres per thousand, and thinking more about radiuses and people's access to parks, how well school facilities serve park functions, and just that connectivity, as well as a increased desire nationwide for walking and biking trails that are off street. And so this map here kind of just gives you some big picture view of, so the light tan circles around the parks is a quarter mile. And so you can see, if we can, work with the school district to get more park use out of school district facilities, we start to get pretty good coverage throughout town of walkability to parks. And then it starts identifying areas where we don't have that quarter mile walkability, that A3, A1, A2 areas, and then that shows you where the park district will actively be looking for property to acquire to build those small pocket parks. So the city's comprehensive plan right now refers to the Parks District Master Plan as one of its park plans in its internal documents. Previous to this, the Park District didn't have a Parks and Facilities Master Plan. This is our first. We had a capital improvement plan, but it wasn't really a vision for what was going to be happening. It was more of a list of deferred maintenance and a couple wish list items. So now, having gone through the work, developed this plan, I think we're really in a great spot to start moving forward and building. This will make our grant applications more competitive. For the state park grants, you get a couple of points for having a master plan, for having the project identified in a master plan. A lot of times that money is decided by 1 or 2 points. And so this will hopefully bump us up into the funding categories for our projects. And we look forward to getting some of that funding. Park District does have system development charges that it's saved over the years. And once we're done paying for this and a few other things, we'll have about $300,000 in that account. Can't be used for operations and maintenance, can only be used for new construction and new amenities. We look to use that money as match. Both because system development charges is for new growth, and some of our buildings will be for the existing people. We can pay for that with the grant, and also just to get the most bang from our buck, because although $300,000 or $400,000 sounds like a lot, it just doesn't go that far. So I did talk a little bit longer than I intended, but I would love to take some questions.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Like when you said you were gonna water the artificial turf, it made me think it's gonna be slippery.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be slippery?
No, it's so they do it all over. I mean, I've personally played on fields that have been wet, and there's so much drainage down there, and you do it when it's hot, and you don't do it right at game time.
It just cools it off and
Yeah.
then it evaporates.
Yeah, and for some of my age playing ultimate on that nice soft surface is great for my knees. I love it, especially.
And if I may, Madam, if we can have your name and address for the record.
Joy?
Smith,
Address?
1407 East 16th.
Thank you.
So your talented planners here will do a much better job of explaining the nuts and bolts of how we get these ideas adopted by City Council and incorporated into the comprehensive plan. And maybe that's a background document, maybe it's some other vehicle. Our goal is to take these ideas, and we wanted to, we've talked to the council and others, is we wanted to vet these ideas kind of legislatively. Is this a good idea? Is this a good plan? If there's something that we're missing, let's talk about it now, so that we can get these ideas to a point where when we go into the planning office to actually build this, it can smooth that process, that we're not going through an extended, lengthy conditional use permit process, largely because those grant funding windows are fairly tight, and they're gonna want a land use compatibility statement to go in with our application. So we wanna get, our goal from Park District is to create a document that is adoptable by the city so that we can get those land use compatibility statements so that we can be competitive for funding. And so if there's anything in any of this that would be a stopper for that, we would really like to address it sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you're dying to have a copy, I'll give you one, but if you can part with it, I'd be happy to take it back, or if you wanna keep it for a
I
time.
have an electronic.
You do have it electronically. Okay.
I'd like to hold on to it.
Keep it. Alright.
I'm gonna hang on to mine too.
Alright, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to our next item, as our quasi judicial hearing. Now's the time specified by the planning commission to conduct a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider the adjustment 19-046, Gary Everest, 1413 East 16th Street, 1N 13E10AA tax lot 3200. Request approval for a 13-foot reduction in lot depth from 65 to 52, and a reduction of 20% per TDMC section 1.3080. Okay. And I'll read the rules for the hearing. The subject criteria upon which the planning commission will base its decision in this matter are contained in the city's comprehensive plan and land use development ordinance. The public hearing is required by law and certain rules apply. First and foremost, you must be recognized by the chair in order to speak and present testimony. And we are going to be limiting testimony to 5 minutes per individual for all testimony of the public. When recognized by the chair, please proceed up to the microphone. And state your name and mailing address for the record. The hearing is required by law to be tape recorded. Generally, the public hearing proceeds as follows. Prior to the public hearing, a determination will be made of the qualifications of commission members and allow for challenges from the audience. I will open the public hearing with a staff report. The purpose of the staff report at this point is to further identify the applicable criteria of the case being considered and to provide background information about the case. After the staff report, we will hear testimony from the proponents, those persons in favor of the application. Next, there will be testimony from the opponents, those not in favor of the application. Next, then, we will have testimony from anyone who wishes to offer testimony or ask questions. Then, to honor the right of rebuttal, we will again hear from those in favor of the application. To expedite the hearing, commission members may ask questions of persons as they testify. When this process has been concluded, we will close the public testimony portion of the hearing. During the hearing, some important standards apply. First of all, those who testify must hold their testimony to the decision criteria. As in all land use hearings, there are a complete set of rules, procedures, and criteria we must follow. Second, failure to raise an issue accompanied by a statement of evidence sufficient to afford the commission members and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Third, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with details specific enough to allow the city to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Fourth, prior to the conclusion of the public hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. If such a request is made, the law states the commission must grant the request by either continuing the hearing to a time and date at least 7 days from the date of the initial hearing, or the record must be kept open for a period of at least 7 days. Those are the rules. Are there any questions?
Could you read the last paragraph?
Yeah.
Fourth,
Yeah, about the.
prior to the conclusion of the public hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. If such a request is made, the law states the commission must grant the request by either continuing the hearing to a time and date at least 7 days from the date of the initial hearing, or the record must be kept open for a period of at least 7 days. Okay?
Can I get a clarification? What I understood was, this is the only talking points you have, what was in the report? Is that?
I don't know what you have here.
I got the report from this lady here the other day. Staff report
report.
adjustment, and it talks about the findings. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand if that's the only thing we get to talk about. What was the findings?
You wanna clarify that? Dawn, I don't know what exactly you gave her.
So she has a copy of the staff report,
Same
so
thing
right
we
now
got.
he's reading the rules of what a public hearing involves. When you can get up and actually give testimony. The testimony, you can basically give whatever testimony you'd
Okay.
like. However, the criteria that they use to review and make a decision is the criterion that's used in there, that is listed in the staff
So
report.
do they take in consideration anything we have to say?
So they do, however, they are bound by our municipal code, which is addressed in the staff report.
And it helps if your testimony is aimed at what's listed in the staff report.
Could I ask what an A2 active geo hazard zone is?
So we can detail that, and let's maybe open the public hearing, and then if she asks that question, I can go ahead and address it at that time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, have any members of the commission had any ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias which would prevent you from rendering an impartial decision in this matter?
Yes. I've had extensive conversations with a neighbor of the proposed lot and may or may not have future financial interest in that.
Did the conversations actually involve the particular application, the merits of it, or did you?
Yes, it did.
Okay, do you think that that has biased you in any way?
It could, yes. So I can recuse myself from this.
Okay, I would probably recommend that you would, because otherwise you would have to disclose the nature of those contacts, what they were, and then give the parties an opportunity to address them, and it sounds like that could get a little convoluted.
I will recuse myself from it.
You might tell us what the definition of recusing yourself.
Well, that means that, Commissioner, Stiles would not participate in the decision, would not participate in deliberation, ask questions, or vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're part of the audience.
You can ask
He could,
questions.
yes, he could remain seated, doesn't necessarily have to go down, sit in the audience, just that he can't participate in the hearing.
Oh, yeah, right. Does anyone in the audience wish to challenge the qualifications of the members of the committee? I don't hear anybody jumping forward.
Oh, I hear someone clearing their throat. I graduated with joy.
What's that? She's biased.
Could be.
Nothing, I was
Long
just
history,
giving you a hard
obviously.
time.
Oh, nobody is standing up or off.
Nobody's listening, right?
Okay, based on that, the public hearing is now open and we can hear, we can have the staff report.
Perfect.
So, Dawn, you're gonna
I
be.
am.
Thank you, Chair Lavier. As stated in the staff report, this adjustment is basically the result of a previously approved minor partition and adjustment that was completed in an administrative status due to the requests before for the adjustment being less than 10%. So this application, is a result of a survey that was completed by the applicant. Tennyson Engineering did provide the applicant's, survey. And the survey basically showed that an additional adjustment was necessary in order to partition these two lots. So today, what the request is that the adjustment be approved for parcel number 2, which will be reducing the, standard lot depth from 65 feet down to 52 feet in depth. As of the date that we prepared the staff report and mailed it, we did not receive any comments. Today, we did receive a letter in the mail, or in the, my email that was provided to you on the diocese from Jonathan Hunt. And I do actually have, a response to his question. He called out finding number 6, which is on page 3 of 4, with regards to a specific calculation of lot density. So in calculating a lot density, what's taken is not just the parcel in question, it's actually taken half of the right-of-way that would have or could have possibly been part of that parcel originally. So what I did is I took a calculation of the entire parcel as well as half of the 15th Street radius, which came out to 1,783 square feet, half of the street here, which is a 50-foot right-of-way, so it's 25 feet, came out to 2,818 square feet, for a total of just over 14,527, or 0.335 acres. I took that number, times it by 6 per gross acre, which then ended up coming up with 2.001. So this meets the up to 6 lots per gross acre. So currently there is a house that's built on the upper parcel, and there's a definite shelf that lies between the two parcels. I kind of tried to show it here. That actually shows the back of the current structure to where the hillside starts. This is on a dead-end street. It's a cul-de-sac at the end of 16th Street. Across from the house, this is the site, so we definitely have some topography changes, and then there's a house that sits just up above here. Another view from the side of the house. And then this is the actual view from the 15th Street side, so you can definitely see that there's a shelf here, and this would be where the second parcel would be created and construction would be accessing from 15th Street. So staff is recommending approval of these adjustment, and stating that the proposal is consistent with the Dallas Municipal Code, Title 10, and we included 9 conditions of approval. The conditions of approval also include the conditions that were included in the original minor partition as well as adjustment. Have any questions?
Does the commission have any questions of staff? No?
I'm just trying to move from here.
So, and I can go ahead and answer, since it already came up. The number 4 talks about the geohazard zone. The property is located in the active Kelly landslide area, which is also known as the A2 zone. What that means is it indicates that there has features of a slide area. So active can be anywhere up to 50 to 100 years is considered active. Any development that goes on these parcels is required to have a geohazard study, and the applicant has already submitted geohazard studies for both the first structure and the second one. We're waiting until the partition is completed in order to submit that study.
Can you flip back a slide, another one more, maybe the map drawing, so I can make it out. And kind of show me with your fingers, like, where the existing one is and where the other one is.
So existing house is here, so this is 16th Street. This is the proposed house down on the 15th Street cul-de-sac. So this one has a cul-de-sac down on this end here, and then this one actually abuts to a cul-de-sac. So these structures have not been constructed as of yet. We're waiting for the partition to be completed, and then, we'll be making application, and then this is the house. The house is currently in the photos.
It's essentially the same.
About parking on 15th Street cul-de-sac, is that an issue?
Excuse me,
You
Commissioner
can't ask
Stausen is not
questions.
allowed to ask a question.
We're dead to us.
Is that?
Yes, the
What's
other
your
was
question?
no. Interesting.
Okay. We do not have any other questions of staff? You're not staff. You have to wait till we get to your.
I thought you said questions to staff.
From the,
Commissioner.
From staff, okay. Got
Please
it.
specify that.
He just didn't hear you say what you said.
you thought you could ask a question to staff?
I was asking the commission if they had any questions of staff.
That's not what you said.
That's what I said.
That's what he said. You just didn't hear it right.
Here.
Okay?
Just keep on getting out of the way.
Okay.
The blind is blinding.
Okay, does anyone wish to testify in favor of the application? Remember, we're gonna limit you to 5 minutes.
Gary, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, please.
Henry Everest, 1413 East East Fifth Street in Hood River, Oregon. So, I just have a couple of comments. It's just that this whole parcel is built to have 2 houses on it. They're on cul-de-sacs. They're like eyesores without a house there. They're 20 feet apart in elevation. 16th Street being the higher one, 15th Street the lower one. And it's always been, the purpose of those 2 lots is to get built on. These, variances here that we're asking for are very light next to, what people, sometimes ask for. And we have put the houses on the lots to produce as small of a variance, here as possible. One house is gonna be done within 30 days. And the other house, we wanna start to fill it out. It just seems that there should be no real reason to object to this. If there was these type of variances for every house on the street, that would be an argument. But, one house that was 65 or 70 years ago planned out to say no now because of a few little variances, that wouldn't make any sense at all. The one variance about the depth of the lot, it's impossible to calculate the depth of the lot, 65 feet. It's a 5-sided lot. The only way you can come up with the one that's intended here is to have square lots and houses on the lot square and then a measurement. This one, it's just it's a moving target to even try to figure out what is or isn't correct. I mean, we just put it, Tennyson just put the best possible way to look at it and meet all the codes, without severely having a problem. So, that's really all all I have to say. The house I'm putting on there is a very thin house. I build houses that are 20 feet, and, you know, most houses are 30 to 40 feet wide, in depth. And so I'm putting a small house on a lot that may be a little smaller, but it fits exactly what this house is a two-story house, just like all the others in the neighborhood. And I see no reason why anyone should try and stop this. So that's the end.
Okay, before you sit down, does anybody in the commission have any questions? Not you. Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to testify in favor of the application? Okay, is anybody looking forward? Does anyone wish to testify, not in favor or opposed to, but just make a statement or ask a question? Excuse me, just a minute, I screwed up. Does anyone wish to testify in opposition to the application?
Yes.
Okay, now would you please come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, and you will be limited to 5 minutes.
Real quick, I understand everyone has a copy of this.
Address, please. Mailing address.
Hi, my name is Jonathan. Okay, my name is Jonathan Hunt. My mailing address is P.O. Box 81, The Dalles, Oregon, 97058. I've already, as I understand, you have a copy of this letter. I talk about finding number 6 in particular, the lack of detail therein. So I ask about the calculations contained. I understand there's been a brief explanation given regarding these calculations, but obviously I'd like to see a diagram including those calculations, so I would ask that the record be extended beyond when I am provided with that. Yeah, so regarding the diagram here, it's been said that the difficulty in some of these calculations is because the lots are 5-sided. Why are they 5-sided? It looks to me like seems that a major issue is this angle right here. When subdividing a lot, it would be much easier to use a straight line, I would think, to prevent the lot from being as 5-sided. I wonder why that has not been done in this case.
I don't think there's anything in the Ludo that says you can't have a 5-sided lot.
Because we do.
Okay, very good. Then I'll await the updated diagrams for further comment. Let's see.
You have a question?
Alright, I'll go ahead and read through this. In finding number 6 of the staff report for adjustment 19-046, reference is made to the lot density calculation for the residential low density zone. No calculation is given there. No numbers in that paragraph. So we wonder what is meant by lot density calculation. The lot density calculation should be specified. Finding number 6 continues, the petition with the proposed adjustments meets the minimum lot density requirements of 6 units per gross acre. We ask where the minimum lot density requirement mentioned is found, noting that in 10.5.010.010, RL allows for a range of 0 to 6 single-family dwelling units per gross acre. If that passage represents a lot density requirement, 6 dwelling units per gross acre would be a maximum, not a minimum density requirement. So the density could not rise above 6 dwelling units per gross acre. Density ranges from the comprehensive plan would similarly indicate 6 units per gross acre as a maximum. Similarly, we consider the last sentence of finding number 6. Without the adjustments, the property would be developed at only 50% of the lot density requirements as stated in the comprehensive plan. What comprehensive plan lot density requirements does this statement refer to? And we note that the Goal 10 Policy 22A, the only reference we could find, prescribes a density range of 3 to 6 units per gross acre for low density residential. However, the proposed development for the minor partition is 2 dwelling units on 9,740 square feet, density of approximately 8.9 dwelling units per acre, well outside the range indicated in either the city code or the comprehensive plan. Finally, as the adjustment would allow such an increase in density, it should be prohibited by city code provision 10.3.080.020B6. The calculation to be made is clear and objective. The adjustment's purpose is to place 2 dwelling units on a lot that is not large enough to be subdivided according to 10.9.020.020D1 and 10.5.010.060. This will not only increase but double the density on the lot in question and cause a resulting increase in density in the RL zone.
Down to about 20 seconds.
Alright, in that case, I'll just note that there is also some question about the application date and when it was submitted, whether this hearing is within the referenced time frame as found in finding 2 or 3. I don't remember which one it is. 2 or 3.
Time up.
And just pop it in there. Just press it down on it, it'll pop in there. Thank you.
Does anybody in the commission have any questions? Okay, thank you.
I do have a
Okay.
Mr. Hunt, the question I have is, have you been to the subject property?
Yes.
Okay. I think we may need to have a legal decision here. Are we in a situation where we're gonna have to extend this?
Well, Mr. Hunt did make a request to continue the hearing, and as you point out in the rules, once that request is made, once you finish, the rest of the testimony tonight, you have 2 options, either to continue the hearing itself to a date certain, or just to, at this point, close public testimony, but continue the record so that there can be additional evidence or testimony presented. And that's the purpose of the continuance. It's not necessarily for the city to present any additional evidence, but certainly Mr. Hunt could produce that if he wants to. That's his opportunity to present either additional argument or evidence, but he has made that request, so you will have to honor it either by continuing the hearing, which would mean allow for more public testimony at the next time, or just the record would be kept open for submission of additional evidence.
Does anyone else wish to speak in opposition to the, you have another question?
This time is up.
Yeah.
Your time is up.
I think,
Give us your name and address.
sure, Lorraine Hunt, Post Office Box 81, Dells. He asked for a diagram so that he could respond to it, so there needs to be an opportunity for the public to respond, so never mind. That was the, anyway. So, yesterday, for the first time I went to the neighborhood that is, just to talk to people and just to see what's happening, not knowing what my involvement would be. And in the process, I met neighbors, and I was given the Shull's addition covenant. And she said, there were people in the neighborhood who did a whole lot of work on this some months ago. And one of the families has moved out. If I mention the name, I know you know who it is, but I'm not gonna do that. But this person who gave this to me said to me, and that's it was a huge concern after I went last night. She gave this and she said, according to this is a legal document, and So what I have them here. Where are they? Oh, here, these. You can pass these out. There you go. Say that again? What?
I'll ask them again.
Okay, this is covenant, and a covenant, I mean, it's binding, and it has, legal things on it, and they took it to a lawyer, and the lawyer said this should have been binding, and the city actually, they don't know how the city was able to, even go to the partition step. So, what it did is, it reminded me of what happened on the East 19th property, where there were covenants, and they came to the, people came here and presented that, and then, in spite of the covenants, the planning commission and the city, the planning department, et cetera, went beyond, and the covenants no longer applied. And so, what this woman said to me, who gave me this last night, I didn't know about this until last night, so I spent today on a presentation because it concerned me so much. This is what she said to me, and I'm not gonna go into my whole script here, but, I'm gonna go back because this is the concern. She said, she submitted this Schultz covenant to the city and a lot of other information, as did another family that's not there anymore. And she said, as so many other persons in 2 other neighborhoods have said, the city will do what it wants. So she said she wasn't coming tonight. But she gave me this, and I said, I'll come, and I'll present this because it's a concern. I said it happened in another neighborhood, and a lot of people presented things, and that happened. So I'm here because I'm concerned about things like this that are where the citizens don't feel heard, and that's an issue in what I'll hand in here. But I don't even know where I'm going to start with what I have ready. But this is the one thing that I want you to take a look at. And
You're down to 2 minutes. So.
Okay, I'm down to 2 minutes, and so I know I'm going to have. So these are what the planning commission are what the community development department is responsible to do. And I suggest take this community development department sheet and look at the bottom, because this is a concern. And I just found out this information today, and I said, why does this keep happening? What's going on? And this is what's happening, and I feel like there's needs to be done. And then I'm going to hand in my sheet, and I request that the record be kept open because there's. I suggest that I went to the neighborhood, and I know neighbors there. They're at vacant houses. There are Spanish-speaking people. There are people who are concerned. There's a father who has 3 children. He couldn't be here tonight because he's a father that's home alone. His wife works, etc. And there was the woman who gave me the Schultz edition, who cares about things and said, you know what? Look, we did this. They built the house at the top of the hill. What? Nothing's going to matter what we say. So she's not here. I suggest that's one reason to keep the hearing open is for people on the planning commission to go to the neighborhood like I did and meet people like I did last night, and then I was there part of today, just finding out what's going on in the neighborhood. And I'm really concerned about what's happening in our neighborhoods, 2 already that we've had experience with. So but at the bottom I want to read this. The same person heads both the community development department. Serving citizens is the prime purpose of this department, and you can see the bullets. They need to be responsive, accurate, consistent, helpful, and honest. And I can't present everything that I prepared today, so it's important to look at that. And the same person heads the economic development division. Helping developers is the first purpose of that person. It is obvious that the same person has not fairly served both the citizens and the developers. I just discovered this morning. Thank you. Thank you. And here are copies for them. Thank you.
Steve, should I have this ready, please? Okay.
12 copies. I brought 12 copies.
They're part of the administrative record, yes.
Thank you.
Would we be open for another legal question?
yes, I just was trying to review this really quickly, but,
Or do you want some time to do that?
well, yeah, I guess I could. We probably should identify these documents too for the record.
Yes.
I guess maybe the first one is, it's entitled Community Development Department and formerly Planning Department, so mission statement, I guess you could call that. This is fence number 1. And then a copy of the protected covenants could be for exhibit number 2. And this is, I guess, a written statement, appears to be number 3.
Thank you.
Did you have another question besides that, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you give us a brief overview of how the Ludo and any covenant would be ranked, or how they would intermarry, or?
Yes, my understanding from the case was with the East 19th Street, the covenants are not specifically part of the criteria of our land use ordinance. They're generally, covenants are enforced by a homeowners association or people in the neighborhood. It's not the city's responsible typically to enforce these. And that's the position I took on the 19th Street property, was to still take that position here. And looking at some of this language, I don't know whether this proposed law even violates the covenants. I'd have to look at it further to determine that. Well, initially, I'd say it's not really relevant criteria for one issue, but then secondly, I'm not sure that they structure necessarily do or don't. I really haven't had a chance to review that. But again, it's not really specific criteria as part of the Ludo, so I think it's, again, it's determined it was not relevant in the 19th Street case, and I take that position again here tonight.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak in opposition to? Please give us your name and address for the record, please.
Joyce Smith, 1407.
Oh, excuse me just a second.
Sorry, I just wanted to just clarify something. So you're, just to clarify, you're saying that Ludo overrides CCNRs for specific
Well,
lots?
purposes of the land use for your jurisdiction, again, whether a private property person who, again, is subject to one of these covenants, whether they could enforce this on their own through a violation, that's another matter. It's a civil matter that we don't have jurisdiction on, but for our purposes, we need to fall with the Ludo. It says that it really doesn't address private covenants.
Sure, so the difference would be if this was like, an HOA area that was managed by an HOA, then it would
Right,
be
and I have no
enforced.
idea that
And in
this,
case it's not.
doesn't refer to any homeowners association, it just refers to, again, any person enforcing, but typically that would be part of a homeowners association or some entity. I have no idea if such an entity exists at this point, or.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Joyce Smith, 1407 East 16th Street. And I really am new to this. I came to this late because I didn't expect it to get this far. And so I might need a lot of clarification. But in the beginning, I thought this was all one lot and the city subdivided it for Gary. Is that correct?
It is one lot, and in the staff report detailed that he had a minor partition and an administrative adjustment that was approved last year. So that.
I'm talking about this was all one lot.
That is currently one lot, yes.
Okay.
So this is a proposed partition line, is this line right here. So it's currently one parcel.
Okay.
So he did receive approval for a minor partition with an adjustment, and then it was found when he had the survey completed that he did need an additional adjustment in order to complete the approval for the minor partition. So at this time, it's currently one parcel. He's requesting 2 with an adjustment of a reduction of a lot depth.
Okay, what is the code for distance here?
So in terms of a building.
How far away does the building have to be from the street?
So that is not criteria we use for an adjustment. I can provide that information really quick. Typically, a setback for a front yard is 15 feet. However, we do have a provision in our code that deals with steeply sloping lots of 20% or more, can reduce their setback 1 foot, and each foot that they reduce that, they have to reduce their overall height of their building by 1 foot. So this, I believe he did take a reduction in setback, which is a ministerial building permit process, and nothing that this group would be reviewing.
So, you guys don't have anything to do with the covenant, but what it does state in the covenant, that the dwelling needs to be ground level of 1,000 square feet. And according to this, by my calculation, it's 680. So that doesn't have anything to do with this.
Correct. Right, that's a civil.
Okay. And looking at it, judging by the 20 feet here and 20 feet here, that's approximately 10 feet, is what I'm seeing.
Probably, I did not bring the building permit.
Okay, just a little note, the parking on 15th Street would be a monster because it is a small cul-de-sac. When you go up past here, this is a long street, there's no parking on this side, there's no building on this side on the street, so there's parking on this side. But on 15th Street, you're at the cul-de-sac and I've been down there, it's not pretty. Like I said, I'm new at this and I probably don't have all my questions, all my ducks in a row, because I really didn't get this far. But who is the head of the community development department? You are. Okay. And so you make you head the department that's, I can't get my words right here. What she said? So what is the lot size supposed to be?
So minimum lot size in the RL zone is 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
Minimum lot depth is 65 and minimum lot width is 50. So previously, a minor petition was approved with a lot reduction up to 10%, so it was an administrative adjustment, which allowed for the lot reduction to be up to 10% reduced. So at that time, we ended up with a partition which included one lot that was just under 5,000 square feet. So then with the additional adjustment, which is the request today, for the lot depth, this parcel number 2 is just over 5,000 square feet, and parcel number 1 is planned to be 4,562 square feet.
Does this happen a lot?
In terms of partitioning?
Yeah, I mean, making them smaller or larger, you have
We
a
have
code that you have and you adjust.
Correct. So we have a limited land supply, and what we have now is infill strategies and encouraging people to infill on those lots. So we do have adjustments, which allows, it's basically, Gary kept mentioning the word variance, which this is not a variance, this is an adjustment. So in a sense, adjustment is a baby step.
Just for future reference, if you have questions like that, it would be easier to go into, to talk to staff and get this when you don't have to, you're not limited on time.
Okay.
And in this case, a lot of what your questions are not in part of our criteria that we have to make a decision by.
Yeah.
So there are mechanisms for getting the answers for you.
Okay.
But this is probably not the right place to do it.
Thank you.
We tried.
Okay.
And these guys are pretty friendly about dealing with talking to you about that. So.
I have another question.
Your time is up.
It looks like we're gonna have to keep the record open, so you have a little more time to add additional testimony in, probably in a report with something written, I would guess.
Oh.
Depends on whether we decide whether to keep the hearing open or to leave the record open.
Well, it would be a legal question for Mr. Parker.
That would be.
Well, and it's the commission's discretion to open, decide again whether they continue the hearing and
Okay.
allow more public testimony or keep the record open.
Okay.
They have that choice.
All right.
I can't make that for them. I can recommend those are the options.
Okay.
depends on how they feel. If they wanna hear some more testimony, they would then probably continue the public hearing. If they just wanna allow an opportunity for some additional written comment, then they would extend the record.
So how does that happen? You adjourn the
We're
meeting
gonna
and we
discuss how that's
present?
gonna
We'll
Oh,
make that
okay.
decision tonight
So-
and
While we're
advise
still here?
everyone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
See, I'm new to this, I don't know.
I'll tell you, Joy.
Oh. I'll get the 411.
Okay, do we have anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the application?
I can't make one additional comment,
No.
correct? Okay, thank you.
You used your time up. But if we keep the hearing open, or if we keep the record open, then you could ask your question at that point, okay?
Or make her comment, she can't necessarily ask a question, right? How does that work? If we keep the record open?
That would be, basically, that would be written submissions at that point, there wouldn't
Yeah.
actually be any more public testimony. But if you continue the public hearing itself, then there would be an opportunity for further public testimony.
And so do we make a motion on which way to handle that?
When you get to that
Discuss
point,
it?
right, yeah. So,
Cause this is new for us.
yeah, at this point, you have to finish the hearing tonight, so.
Yeah, we're still, the question was put out, asking if anyone else wanted to speak in opposition to the application. We run out of people in the audience for that. There is an opportunity, if you wish to just ask questions or just general comments, based on the testimony, if you're not pro or con to the project. Does that make any sense? Okay, no neutrals. We will give the applicant, 5 minutes if you want to write a rebuttal. You have the right to say something at this point.
I've said everything
Okay,
I need to say.
thank you. I guess at this point, if no one has any questions, are we at the point of discussing this before we close the public testimony?
Well, at this point, you probably will have to make a decision about whether you want, again, to continue the hearing to a date certain or just keep the record open. Because you don't wanna really start deliberating at this point, because there's probably going to be either some additional testimony, or there's gonna be additional written evidence or statements offered that we need to consider whenever the next hearing would be, or probably at your next meeting, because if you keep like the record open for at least 7 days or longer, then they would have that period of time to submit their additional statements and evidence that they wanna offer. But if you continue the hearing itself, we wouldn't close the hearing tonight, it would be continued to perhaps again the next meeting, or whatever that would be, September 5th.
So and then that, whatever that next meeting time is, regardless of whichever one we do, then we would have all the information.
Right, that's when you would, review the additional evidence, or at that point, if there would be additional testimony, you could come in that night, and then
So we would
be in the position.
but one way or the other, we can't make a decision at this point.
Yeah, at this
So
point,
if we left the record open, we would have to come in and finish the hearing anyway. Right.
That's correct, if you kept the record open, there would not be any more public testimony, there would just be the additional written information that would be submitted.
Okay, I understand your point.
So now do we make motions?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to leave the record open for whatever the period of time is.
It has to be a minimum of 7 days, but I would recommend you specify whether it's gonna be more than 7 days, or if you say it has to be at least 7 days.
Do we have a meeting to do with?
We have a meeting on September 5th, and we will have a public hearing on another item.
Okay, so, you could specify it for the next meeting.
We need to give you guys time to put them together, right? So we should be before the next meeting. So, I would propose that we leave public,
The record open.
thank you, until August 29th, which is 1 week before the next.
Does that work for staff?
It's 2 weeks from now, and
We will have to.
29th, so the 28th would work
28th
better
would
in
be-
terms of getting a mail,
Timing
ballot
wise?
quotas or.
Oh, that's right, cause of your mailing
Right.
deadline, okay. So, I propose that we leave the record open until August 28th on this matter, whatever it is.
And that's for us to give written,
That's the minimum.
not anymore.
Let us,
The motion is to keep the record open to that point.
on adjustment 19-046.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded.
Could I say something? If the record is just left open, wait a second.
No, you can't say anything right now.
But then there can't be a
You can't
response.
say anything right now.
There can't be a response. Okay.
Well, you can go ahead and talk to staff, I mean, but if you.
But not now.
But for the hearing, you can submit additional testimony in writing.
If we voted.
Based on this, on the
But we need
motion.
information from them.
Is that correct?
That's correct, I mean, they can submit additional statements, additional argument, whatever documents they want to present, they would need to be filed by the 28th, I believe it is, was your,
Was it the date?
is the proposed deadline.
Unless we decide we don't want to do it. Cause we have a limit.
That's the next spot, where it's, we have a motion on the floor, we have a second. Okay, so, I think we were just clarifying what that was doing. So, are you ready to vote? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. The record will be kept open until the 28th.
So can I ask a question about that? So we submit in writing, but not verbal testimony, is that correct?
I think you could ask questions of staff, but
But not in a meeting setting like this?
for the official, for this hearing,
Uh-huh.
if you want, whatever you wanna have entered into the record, you have to put something in writing.
Okay. And we can go get information from the staff in the
Not
meantime?
staff. Yeah.
Okay.
But your discussions with staff are discussions with staff, that's not going into the official record for the hearing.
Right. But if we get information from them that's pertinent, we can use that in our written testimony?
One way or the other.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's fair.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So that, I don't think we can do anything else until.
Right, yeah, the resolution would wait till your decision, the next meeting.
Okay. So, the next item on the agenda, the resolution, we'll have to put that aside till we finish up the hearing on the next, the 5th of September. Staff comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a couple of items for you. We do have one public hearing scheduled for the 5th, so we will have that meeting on that date. There was a meeting that was hosted by Regional Solutions, that's out of the governor's office, our local representative, Nate Stice. It was a meeting held on the 31st at the community college, and it was a meeting on housing, regional housing. And Mr. Stice, you can participate, sure. Invited a number of representatives from the cities and counties in this area. We had 2 state representatives there. We had elected representatives from the cities and the counties, and we also had staff. And we also had state representatives from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And they wanted to present a picture of the local housing market. As you may know, there were a number of bills that have been signed into law with this last session of the state legislature that dealt with housing. One of them, perhaps probably one of the more controversial ones, was House Bill 2001, which for cities above 10,000 population now requires the cities to allow duplexes to be permitted in all zones that single-family dwellings are permitted.
And in, cities that are above 25,000, it's called the middle housing, and that's the phrase, which would require duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes to be allowed within those zones that allow, single-family homes. So we are in that first category of the duplexes. And, as you know, we've been working on a series of housing code amendments. We've had our workshop. And so what we decided to do is at this time include that provision allowing duplexes within those zones that allow single-family homes in this bundle of phase 2 amendments, which I suspect we'll have some public comments on that. So we'll be bringing these forward to you. I believe we have your second meeting in September. I think that's the date that we have tentatively scheduled for that public hearing, which would be September 19th. As you remember from the workshop, we took some time to go through that. We did work with the consultant following that workshop, and we did make a number of changes based on your comments and public comments that evening to those proposed amendments. We also, a couple of other things, the city and the county, we're co-hosting an event that's being put on by the Oregon chapter of the APA and also by the State Department of Land Conservation and Development. And it's going to be a 2-day event, or actually an evening and a day. It's what we refer to as a planners network meeting. The state holds these throughout the state a couple of times a year. We had contacted the state some time ago to see if we could have one of these in our area, and so we have that it is now scheduled for September 23rd and September 24th. It's the evening of September 23rd. That is specifically for planning commissioners and the planning commissioners training. So you're all invited. It will be held from 5:30 to 7:30. It's on Monday evening, the 23rd. And it's going to be held at the, right across the street of the National Neon Sign Museum. And we're going to have a couple of topics on new state legislation, some other topics on what's happening at the state level for urbanized areas and then rural areas. And then on the 24th, that'll be held at the Gorge Discovery Center. There'll be, I think, 5 or 6 sessions throughout the day, and various topics on housing, and also Mr. Parker has agreed to host a session on findings, the importance of findings. So you don't want to miss that, and a few other sessions. So we'll be sending out a formal invitation for that as well. So I encourage you to attend those meetings if you can. And again, the department has some planning commissioner training, so we will take care of that. And the last item is what we've been working on are the planning commission bylaws, and perhaps the chair or one other member of that committee is here this evening, and maybe you'd like to comment on that. And we have been working at staff level to make those changes to those draft bylaws that we discussed in the meetings.
I think staff did a very good job of providing us a draft. We were quite pleased with that, and we had a very productive discussion. It looked like we were well on our way. Cool.
Okay.
I hope it makes meetings like this a little easier.
And just one other item, if I may, if I could ask the city attorney, we did receive notice this week, notice of intent to file another LUBA appeals case.
On what?
It's on the 13th and Perkins, the decision that was remanded by LUBA to the city council on the issue about the method used to calculate density and whether there was an increase in density. The city council chose to reaffirm their decision. We received the actual, even though it's called a notice of intent to appeal, it is the notice of appeal that was filed by Mrs. Hunt and her son Jonathan. We got that actually Monday. So now we will prepare the record, and then that'll start the clock for the petition be filed by the 9th, so then the city will file a response based on what they raise in the petition, and we'll go down for another oral argument with the board, probably sometime in, I suppose, October or November. I don't know when that'll be scheduled, but.
No, I think some of these issues regarding density calculations that have been raised, have been, rejected by the, Land Use Board of Appeals, not once but twice. And they've also been rejected by the State Board of Appeals as well. And, contrary to comments received earlier this evening, as the Community Development Director, I believe I'm fully capable of fairly representing and serving both the citizens and the developers that come before this body and other bodies, as I have for 40 years in this profession. So, thank you.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Commissioner comments or questions?
Yes, I have a question. So, I would like some clarification on testimony, pro or con, because we've gotten into this before, and, we actually have, limited people who were proponents of a project because they did not live in the neighborhood. I just would like some clarification on, does there need to be any proximity or any tie or anything for, testimony one way or the other?
No, that's not part of our criteria. They need to address the relevant criteria, but there's no residency requirement.
So we can appropriately shut those people down before that, okay. That's water under the bridge, okay. I just wanted to double check, cause I felt badly that we had been unfair to people earlier, based on what we're doing now. Okay, thank you.
Steve, I just have one quick question about the House Bill 2001. That's a state mandated thing, like, we have to do that.
Yes.
So we just figure out how we fit it into our plan, right?
Yes.
Is it a requirement or is it a may?
It's a shall.
It's a gotta do it, okay, that's what I thought.
And there's also a deadline as well, it's imposed by the state and all the cities to incorporate. And the Department of Land Use and Conservation, they will be drafting a model ordinances. It will be some time before those are available.
Will this make the, the appeal of burdens, property, does that become null and void, or
I'm not sure I should address that right now, but,
Sorry, I know that question was a little ahead of
yeah.
schedule.
That's certainly an argument that could be made at some point, although right now the appeal has been filed before that law actually takes effect, so, it might have an impact on future similar situations, but for this particular application, no, it would, because, the decision was made before that law actually took effect, so.
Interesting.
Anything else for the good of the order?